So that concludes the workshop. Since we're a little bit behind time, I'll go ahead and call the regular meeting to order. If everyone could please stand for the presentation of colors, the pledge, and a moment of silence. That'll be followed by a special presentation of the national anthem by 9th grade performing arts student Emily Gast.
Do you want this?
Ready, hold. Face. Freeze in. Hello.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello.
Thank you, and thank you to the Como Navy Junior ROTC for the presentation of the colors. All right, Dr. Aguilar, do you have opening comments?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Representatives from Cox Communication recently awarded 4 schools with grants. Karen Crowe Heights Elementary received funding for an accelerated reader library containing more than 300 books, a mobile library cart, and several book bins. Catherine Drexel kindergarten students each received a seat sack to put on the back of their chair to hold materials needed throughout the day. Both schools also received little free libraries from donations from Cox Communication and United Way of Acadiana. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade students at Woodvale Elementary received Chromebooks to assist with their science lessons. This was over 350 Chromebooks to be used to analyze data and create reports. and the grant for Southside High School is dedicated to providing students with tools and resources for investigating the Vermilion River watershed through programming and coding activities. Students will conduct various experiments and analyze data sets. I want to thank Cox Communication for their partnership with the Lafayette Parish School System. Congratulations also to Southside High art teacher Kimberly Thibodeau. She has been nominated as the Southeastern Region Art Educator from Louisiana. We wish her well in her pursuits. National Gear Up Week recently was celebrated, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the director, Tracy Oquan, and her staff for the college and career awareness activities that they have planned for our high school students throughout this school year. Students can participate in Saturday Universe, experiences in coding, engineering, and self-improvement activities. Students will also be exposed to science exploration field trips to LUMCOM, LICO, and university visits. I want to also thank the University of Louisiana Lafayette staff for their donated time, collaboration, and partnership with LPSS. Congratulations to the following Lafayette High students who have achieved semifinalist status with the National Merit Scholarship Program: Alex Baston, Gabriel Bowen, Evan Casper, Anna Espinoza, and Emmeline Miller. They will continue to compete for one of the National Merit Scholarships that will be offered this spring. This Friday, October 13th, is the LPSS College and Career Readiness Day at ULL Student Union. This is an opportunity for our high school students to explore career, college, and military opportunities. I want to invite our board members to visit the Student Union this Friday between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. to see what our students are being offered. Thank you to Student Services staff and high school counselors for sponsoring this activity. It is hard to believe that this first 9 weeks of school is coming to an end. Report cards will be available on Thursday, October 19th, during the parent-teacher conferences. This is a reminder that there is no school on that date, and parents should receive information from their child's school regarding appointment times. There is also no school on October 20th, as this is fall break day. Classes will resume on October 23rd. The Louisiana Association of Educators will host a community conversation on Monday, October 16th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the main branch of the Lafayette Public Library, 301 West Congress Street. The dialogue is to elicit open conversation concerning student testing and what we as a community can do to push positive testing reform in our state's public schools. Central office personnel, school board members, and members of the community are invited to attend. I want to also announce to the board and the community that I will be shortly soliciting a task force to participate in conversations about our outstanding world language immersion programs. The goal of this task force will be to review strategies for strengthening our current French, Spanish, and Chinese programs. Ms. Tia LeBrun and I will be the task force committee chairs, and we will be contacting community members to participate. If you are interested in helping us envision how to improve and enhance our world language programs, I invite you to call my office, contact my office, and solicit membership on this task force. I want to say thank you to the Como High Performing Arts students. They entertained before the meeting. They provided the music tonight, and thank you to Ms. Jennifer Tasson. And, of course, the tragic death of Corporal Middlebrook was devastating to the Lafayette community. One of the things that the school system decided to do was to wear blue today in honor of Corporal Middlebrook. This was a voluntary blue shirt, blue jean day for our students, and I'm happy to report that as of noon today, the district will be donating $19,385 to the family of Corporal Middlebrook. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have Human Resources personnel changes. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. 1.4 recognition, the LEF model grant.
We're going to have a short presentation on the high-low books for reading success, high-interest, low-level reading books for our schools. This was a grant that was made possible by our community grant partner, Capital One, Ms. Wright, Executive Director of LEF, Ms. Dickerson, Programs Director of LEF, and this program was created by LPSS educator Amy Moss. And the schools that were given grants were Acadian, Karen Crow, Edgar Martin, Lafayette, and Scott Middle Schools in the amount of $5,000 for Acadian, $5,000 for Karen Crow, $4,000 for Edgar Martin, $5,000 for Lafayette Middle, and $5,000 for Scott Middle. Ms. Dickerson would like to come to the microphone and speak for a second on this. We surely do appreciate it.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm the Programs Director for Lafayette Education Foundation, and we are excited to announce this partnership with Capital One. If you're not familiar with Lafayette Education, we believe in promoting the excellence in education, and we help try to bridge the gap between private and public businesses and the community to help support our public schools. We were very impressed with a classroom grant that Amy Moss submitted to us that was called High-Low Books for Reading Success. The program requires books that are of high interest for middle school level readers that are reading 2 or more grade levels below their grade level. We have found that there are middle school students still reading at a 3rd grade level, 4th grade level, and below. Since implementation of a classroom grant by Amy Moss at Broussard Middle, we saw an average jump in grade reading levels of 1.5 grades within a year. In some cases, 2 to 3 grades were also achieved. With the impact of that classroom grant, our executive director has written grants to Capital One and other companies to further institute this grant, and it's now become an LEF model grant. Last year was Edgar Martin. This year we've added Acadian, Karen Crow, Lafayette, and Scott Middle. The checks were delivered earlier this year. They're in the process of purchasing books, and we're excited to see what the data will show us at the end of the year. We hope to see that grade and a half level increase in their reading levels. The books are everything from history to biographies, a wide range of subjects, to where students aren't embarrassed carrying a book at a younger level than their age. We're happy to see the data come through. Thank you so much.
If I can give you an example, Ms. Swallow, the principal at Scott Middle, sent me an email. She was unable to attend this evening. But the basic idea at Scott Middle is to purchase books that will not only fit the reading level of the students, but engage their interest. And she writes that Anna Hargrave, our librarian at Scott Middle, will have an incentive program for the students, and she will track their reading progress and reward them for their growth. She has been able to purchase over 300 books. LEF has given the students at Scott Middle School, and she capitalizes this, a win-win opportunity, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have personnel changes.
Thank you, Madam President. Changes are attached to your agenda items, and I believe Ms. Thibodeau has one recognition tonight.
Good evening, Board. I'd like to introduce the new assistant principal at Live Oak Elementary School, Rodrika Wilson. Ms. Wilson earned a bachelor and a master's degree from UL Lafayette. She began her teaching career in St. Martin Parish at St. Martinville Primary School. She has also taught at J.W. Falk Elementary School, Holy Family Catholic School, St. Martinville Elementary School, and Leo Giudice Elementary School. Her most recent position has been instructional leader at Westside Elementary School. Congratulations, Ms. Wilson, on your new appointment at Live Oak.
Just a quick moment to Dr. Aguilar as well as the board. Thank you for another opportunity to continue to serve our children in Lafayette. Thank you.
All right, we're now to the consent agenda. I'll read each item. The board members will let me know which ones they want to pull for discussion.
Ms. Morris?
Yes, Mr. Guidry.
I just wanted to mention a correction that's required for agenda item 3.2, contracted services, fuel purchases.
In the recommendation, there's a reference for pricing tied to Opus plus 10%, and it should read Opus plus 10 cents. Instead of 10%, it should be 10 cents.
All right, so will someone pull that one so we can correct it, Mr. Hidalgo? Okay, thank you. All right, 3.1, approval of bids for Broussard Middle, Edgar Martin, and Youngsville Middle Gymnasium AC project. 3.2, contracted services, fuel purchases. Mr. Hidalgo, you pull that one. 3.3, Southside High School Construction Fund Budget Revision Number 1 for 17-18. 3.4, General Fund Budget Revision for additional social studies textbooks. 3.5, 2016 Construction Fund Budget Revision Number 1 for the 17-18 school year. 3.6, Capital Improvement Fund Budget Revision Number 1 for 17-18. 3.7, General Fund Budget Revision Number 1 for fiscal year 17-18. 3.8, Special Revenue Fund Budget Revision Number 1, fiscal year 17-18. 3.9, Self-Funded Construction Fund Budget Revision Number 1, 17-18. 3.10, Budget Revision to allocate funding for science teacher professional development.
Pull that, please.
.11, listing of bids approved to be advertised by superintendent. 3.12, approved bid award band instruments bid number 05-18. 3.13, approval of drainage servitude with LCG Prairie Elementary. 3.14, summary of grant funding and activity September 2017. 3.15, budget to actual reports September 2017. 3.16, budget revision self-funded construction fund architectural services.
Will you pull that, please?
3.17, general fund budget revision annual transfer to school sites renovations.
Pull that.
3.18, policy BBBF board staff communications.
Pull that, please.
3.19, human resources reorganization. 3.20, resolution 10-17-1917, employee special counsel.
Pull that, please.
3.21, revisions to policy JHB, student activities funds management. I'm going to pull that one. 3.22, rescind resolution 10-15-1870. 3.23, resolution 10-17-1916, educational diagnosticians month. 3.24, approval of minutes. All right.
Madam President, I move that we approve all items not pulled.
All right. Do we have any comments from members of the public on any of those items that were not pulled for discussion? All right, members of the board. Then, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
She transferred you up. You know what my son's doing? He's doing the helicopter program. 18 years old. Started in August. Soloing since last week. 18-year-old boy flying an air helicopter through SLC. Think about that. You know.
8 for, none against.
All right, the first item pulled was 3.2, contracted services, fuel purchases. Mr. Hidalgo.
Yeah, Madam President, I'll make a motion that the board authorize the superintendent to enter into a contract with Fleet Right for fuel purchases for buses and other Lafayette Parish School System vehicles, contingent upon Fleet Right being able to offer contract pricing terms of oil price information services plus 10 cents at a majority of the higher utilized fueling stations that are currently being utilized.
Second.
All right, any questions or comments from members of the public on this item? Members of the board?
Yes, Madam President,
Mr.
if I
Hidalgo?
could. There should be, Ms. Jan should be here this evening. Can we allow her a few minutes
Sure.
at the podium to present? That be okay?
Yeah, just a couple minutes, though. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity for me to come tonight and speak with you about the fuel card that I'm currently marketing. I work for ShopRite, and we are a local company. And I think that my claim to fame, you're currently using Fuelman now, but my claim to fame is that all fuel cards offer pretty much the same thing. What we have to offer that's a bit different is our customer service. Because of our local influence here, we can get to you right away. Should your bus drivers have any issues or problems with the card, on the back of the card is an 800 number. They can dial that 800 number while they're at the pump, while they're having trouble with making the purchase. Our customer service ladies answer the phone immediately, can pull up the transaction on the computer and see what the issue is. If the issue is a PIN number that they're having trouble with, they can correct that PIN number, give them the right PIN number, and let them try again. Or if the problem is a pump issue and it's not communicating with the computers, we can authorize the sale of that fuel because we can tell them to go inside, hand the phone to the clerk behind the counter, give them an authorization code, tell them that the bus driver is authorized to purchase that fuel so that he can go outside, turn the pump on, and get the fuel and get going. Also, we have an 800 number that is available anytime they have trouble, night or day, and our operators are there to assist them. Because we're local, if you need a card immediately, we make cards in-house every day. We mail them every day, but if you need it sooner than the next day, because we're local, I can get it in Crowley. We're based out of Crowley. I can get it in Crowley and bring it to the operators. Our customer service, the customer service that we provide surpasses all customer service that anyone else can provide because we are local, because we're small and we can attend to your immediate needs. We talk to you right away. Everybody else is automated and we're not. We also provide, what makes me different also is that we can provide pricing. We can negotiate pricing with you. That Opus price plus 10 cents is something that is negotiable, that we can talk about, and hopefully we can get your business. Any questions?
Yeah, Madam President, a few reasons I put this on the agenda. First, I think it's no secret that I'm a big advocate for local business, and I understand if things are not broken, don't fix it. However, we have a lot of buses and a lot of vehicles in our parish, and I know that Fleet Right services many large fleet organizations such as the Sheriff's Department and other school boards that surround us, Acadia Parish and others. And so I wanted to certainly do business locally, but also, we have to work on saving money. I mean, that's what we do, right? So I think one of the things that Ms. Jan, as the motion states, one of her obligations is going to be to go out and try to get a better price on fuel for us from the locations that we currently utilize, that our bus drivers and that the staff currently utilize. So I would ask you to, please support this motion allowing the superintendent to enter into a contract with Fleet Right, providing that Fleet Right is able to, meet our needs here, as the motion states. I do have one question for Ms. Jan.
Yes.
Can you briefly tell me how have you been able to save, for example, the Sheriff's Department and Acadia Parish and others, how have you been able to save the money? I understand the service component, but aside from the great customer service and the local representation, how have you been able to save these organizations? Have you, and how have you been able to?
Well, because of our pricing scenario, we go in and we offer a price based on the Opus price. Most of the time, customers just pay pump price. I know you all have negotiated a price with Fuelman. I'm not sure what that price is, but when I did a cost analysis, I guess it was about 8 years ago, I was able to save you about $30,000, and that was on a 1 month invoice.
But that
now,
was-
but that was a long time ago. So
And that was only based on utilizing your
that was based on
existing
only
locations.
our existing locations. That's
But
right.
one of the obligations here is for you to go out and get a majority of the fueling locations that we currently use on the discount plan, for lack
That's
of a better
correct.
term. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Yes, ma'am. So I want to understand the pricing. So Opus would be an index price,
Mhm.
and you're saying that you're going to negotiate with different retailers, Opus plus 10.
Nope.
No? Okay.
I'm going to negotiate the Opus price. I'm going to look at the Opus price and add my 10-cent margin to that and give that price to you. That is the price that I will contract to you. What I negotiate with the store is going to be different. He and I will enter an agreement,
Which may be higher or lower than Opus plus 10.
which may be higher or lower than what they're getting now from Fuelman. It's what they're going to look at what they're getting from Fuelman and compare what I'm going to offer them.
Okay, yeah, I was confused that you had mentioned you were able to negotiate better for us. I didn't know if the 10 cents was negotiable.
If it has to be.
I mean, will you give us 7? I mean,
Well, I really don't know. Let me say that all options are on the table. I have to go out and get 30 new locations, 21 new locations, so that you'll have 30 locations to purchase fuel from. Currently, we have 9 where I can affect the price. So we're looking at acquiring new locations. There's a cost to do business there. So, it has to be feasible for us to partner with them and with you so that we can it can be a win-win situation.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if there were no, Mr. Broussard?
Oh, there it is. I think one of the challenges we had last time we went through this is that accessibility. Are we limited to the Lafayette Parish stores, or can the bus who's out of town, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, or whatnot, is that fleet called welcome outside of this immediate area? And how accessible is it for the bus to get in and out? I know ShopRite has smaller stores, and compared to what place do we go to now?
My card can currently be used anywhere where you're shopping now. The difference is that you won't get the discount if you don't go to a ShopRite or a Tobacco Plus. That's why I'm trying to negotiate your more frequented stores with them so that I can get you that same discount. But the card can be used everywhere you're purchasing fuel now. You'll just pay pump price at those locations if it's not a ShopRite, Tobacco Plus, and if we haven't gotten them as an affiliate of ours. Does that make sense? Okay.
I just want to clarify for Mr. Broussard that the motion is to allow the superintendent to enter into contract with FleetRite, providing FleetRite can get the discounted rate for us. So I just want to be clear. It's providing they can go to the same locations that we're currently shopping at and get either a better price or, at the worst case scenario, the same price. So the accessibility is still there.
Dr. Aguilar?
So just one clarification. By our calculation, majority of gas stations would be about 40. Is that acceptable to you? Because that was what the motion said, a majority of gas stations.
Right. The verbiage said 30 of the higher utilized. The motion says a majority of the higher utilized, so that's 15. Or 16 is a majority of 30. It says at 30 of the higher utilized fueling
just
stations.
to be clear, our drivers are tanking up at about 80 different stations in Lafayette currently.
Do you have some stats on what are the higher used stations? The most used service stations across the parish?
We're pulling that together, and based on what the board's action is going to be tonight, we'll have it available tomorrow. If the board chooses to move forward with it.
Okay.
We actually felt like 30 was a reasonable number of stations for good coverage.
I have a question, Ms. Morris. Is this the intent to replace Fuel Man, or is the intent to just be another option for drivers? Maybe it's a misheard all. Is the intent to replace the Fuel Man cards?
Oh, well, certainly, yeah. It's either or.
It's either or, not both.
It's either or, yeah.
Kind of follow up on what Mr. Broussard says. With the way our schools travel in the state, and staff may or may not have this answer, when we go out of town with Fuel Man, are we paying the majority of the time pump price, or are we paying a discounted price through Fuel Man? You know?
Yeah, most of the trips are driven by contractor drivers, so we pay an operational reimbursement, or so much for the trip. We have a schedule for the varying various cities within the state that we travel to, and by city we have an amount that we'll pay that contract driver to drive the trip.
Okay.
Board drivers typically drive in parish and in the surrounding parishes, but the contractors, are the ones that are going to extend out to Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Lake Charles, those areas.
Well, my concern is limiting access. I mean, I think you're saying we currently use 80 different stations on average?
That's roughly 80, yes.
I mean, I can see us consolidating that to, say, 30, 40-ish, like reduce it in half if we're truly saving a significant amount of money. Maybe that means someone has to travel an extra half mile to a mile to get to a station. But I think that it's probably, instead of having this nebulous statement that says majority of the higher utilized, which are both, I mean, majority is not subjective, but higher utilized is probably subjective. I think we need to just define a number of stations that we're going to get this type of pricing at.
I'd like to ask one more question to staff. Of the 80, how many of those honor the Fuel Man discount? Not the card, but the discount price? About, roughly. Are we filling up some of our buses with the Fuel Man card at pump price?
Those 80 would be those that have agreed to, that are Fuel Man locations. So they should be honoring the Fuel Man pricing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam President, I'll offer a substitute motion that the board authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract with Fleet Right for fuel purchases for buses and other Lafayette Parish school system vehicles, contingent on Fleet Right being able to offer service at 30 locations. And then that will give us the ability to review the contract terms.
Right,
It feels like there's a moving target here.
So there's a substitute motion with a second by Mr. Broussard. All right, any questions or comments from members of the public on the substitute motion? All right, members of the board? Sure, go ahead.
I do want to verify, Mr. Hammonds, that the language that I used allows the superintendent to negotiate in good faith, but then brings the contract itself to the board for approval.
It does. The only thing I would add, when you said 30, why don't you just say at least 30?
That I'll change it to that, at least 30 instead of 30.
All right, so if there are no further questions from the board, I'll call for the vote.
Mr. Santana, could you repeat the motion?
That the board authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract with Fleet Right for fuel purchases for buses and other Lafayette Parish school system vehicles contingent on Fleet Right being able to offer contract pricing terms at least 30 fueling stations.
So is it ready for us to vote, Madam Secretary? Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you.
Oh, God.
Said he voted 4 times.
9-4, none against.
All
Thank
right,
you.
The next item that was pulled was 3.10, budget revision to allocate funding for science teacher professional development. That was Mr. Angel. All right. Let me go ahead and skip to the next one, and we'll come back to that one. 3.16, budget revision, self-funded construction fund, architectural services.
Madam President, I move that the board approves the self-funded construction budget revision increase in the amount of $35,000 for architectural services school sites.
I'll second.
All right, any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, members of the board, Mr. Santani?
I would just like a very short description of what the architectural services are for.
Members of the board, I am currently working to identify what I would call non-traditional properties that are capable of being converted into use as possible school sites. We do not have any specific sites at this point that we have identified. However, in the event we would find what I would call a non-traditional building that potentially could be converted to a school at a reduced cost to the board for that classroom space, I would need an architect and engineering to go in and evaluate the cost construction benefit of purchasing that building and converting it into a school. So I believe we need that little bit of money for architectural services.
All right, are there any other questions, Mr.
I do have a question, and I think it is related to this. If it's not, you can stop me. But Dr. Aguilar, when these properties come up available on the market, I assume that you are in a position where if you want to buy the property, or even if show significant interest and enter into a contract on that property, do you need some sort of permission from us in order to do that? Because I know we don't act as timely as the real estate market does with our monthly or maybe twice monthly meetings.
I would, first of all, I do not believe I have the authority to enter into a purchase agreement, even contingent upon board approval. It would be ideal if at the November board meeting, you gave me the necessary authority to bring to you a purchase agreement for a piece of property that you would either approve or reject.
I would just recommend that maybe you get with our realtor and staff and figure out what type of permission you need from us so that you are able to act in a timely manner if you find a property that you're interested in. Without fully obligating the board to buy the property without
Yes,
us
sir.
having.
We can do that.
Thank you.
All right, any additional comments? Then, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Nine for, none against.
All right, I'm going to go back to item 3.10, budget revision to allocate funding for science teacher professional development. Mr. Angel?
Thank you, Madam President. For discussion purposes, I'll make a motion. Well, I'd like for somebody else to make the motion.
I move to approve, budget revision to allocate funding for science teacher professional development.
I'll second.
All right, second by Ms. Morrison. Okay, any questions or comments from members of the public on this one? Okay, Mr. Angel?
As I was looking through this agenda item, more specifically, middle and high unit development. First of all, I compliment the people that wrote this, put this in this format. But I want to go back just a little bit. Well, I guess maybe more than a little bit. But years ago, when a lot of us were agrarian, we worked in the field. A full day, and kind of the saying for a full day was "can't see to can't see," and that means sun up to sundown. When you'd work from can't see to can't see, sun up to sundown. That was the definition of a full day. Of course, my definition today of a full day is an 8-hour day. Now, if you look at this chart under middle and high unit development, up in the upper right-hand corner, it says 1 full day, 6 hours, face-to-face, complete template understanding, etc. I don't know what happened to the 8-hour day. I guess today, 6 hour is a full hour day. I don't know. Just a comment.
Where does it say that? Mr. Angel, would you like that to reflect hours, daily hours for a teacher?
Make a comment that a full day of 6 hours is
Okay.
I bet you it's not your full day.
No, no, sir, it's not.
It's not mine either.
All right, so are there any additional comments on this item? Dr. Chasson?
I just had a question as to how this would affect elementary schools. I know it says middle and high, but how does this entire thing affect elementary schools?
So our elementary schools are actually on a block grant right now, and they are essentially what you have here, the format that you have here, they are actually implementing currently. Their units are almost complete, with the exception of third grade, who their team is very solid, and they are perfectionists, bless their hearts. So they are taking a little bit longer, but I think it's mainly because they work so well together, and they really want to make sure that they do it right. And so with that being said, the elementary teams are doing a phenomenal job. In fact, all of the video that you saw earlier come from those units that the elementary teams have been putting together. And I worked with them, along with my coaches, worked with them all summer. And it was just an amazing process to see what they went through in their transformation. So they have essentially followed this development program, or proposal, or platform, or however you want to look at it. So they're actually moving on to the assessment piece.
Ms. LeBlanc, are the standards that were adopted in March, are they being implemented right now?
Yes, sir.
And so is this going to require teachers who maybe spent their summer doing their lesson plans to redo their lesson plans?
Well, we asked them not to do that. We asked them to wait for those units to be sent to them or to put out. So we're actually working with them and helping them to implement those standards in their classroom as we are developing those units.
Have we implemented any lessons learned from 2014 or 2012 or whenever we implemented the prior standards? I know it was a bumpy implementation, to say the least. Have we implemented any or put in place any lessons that we learned from that, the adoption of those standards, and how we're helping teachers adjust?
So you're not talking about science, right?
Well, I'm talking about the implementation of standards, which is what
Yes.
this is, yes?
So last year, we knew this was coming. So last year we implemented the 5E model, because this is all about three-dimensional learning. This is about hands-on. It's about making sure that what students are learning can be transferred from one classroom to another, to their home, throughout their community, and so on, and throughout the long term, so that they become lifelong learners. Well, in order to do that, there's a paradigm shift that takes place in the classroom. We knew that this was going to be a process. It's not an overnight, it's a process. It's going to take years, really, to develop those teachers. Those that get it have embraced it, and they're learning, and they know that. So for me, and with my team, one of the things that we talked about was how are we going to transition them. So the 5E model was the best thing that we could do to get them ready, and that's what we did last year. We started training in February of last year with the anticipation that the standards were going to be adopted. They were, and we began training right away. We began working on units because we knew that there would be no curriculum per se. There wouldn't be really any resources for teachers to use, so we tried to provide as much as possible. We've given them supplemental resources. We've put everything in place for them, with the understanding that teachers will struggle, but it's going through that struggle and it's going through that process with their students that they are going to learn the most. And we want them to do that this year as opposed to next year when that state test is operational. So with all of those implementations in place and with the support that you guys are giving them, and you have been phenomenal. I really want to thank you for everything that you have done for us, because without your support, and there are many districts that do not have the support of their administration, they don't have the support of their school board, and so they're kind of just left to do what they can. So with your support, we have been able to go in and really tell them, all I need you to do is try. The worst thing you can do is not try. Because if you just put yourself out there, work with the standards, and work with the students, they will be successful. But they can only be successful through you. So that's kind of our motto, is just try, and of course, collaboration. We really want them to collaborate. Okay.
All right, if there are no further questions, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, 1 against.
All right, the next item pulled is 3.17, annual transfer to school sites renovations construction account.
Madam President, I move that the board approves a budget revision for an annual transfer out beginning in fiscal year 2017-2018 of an amount equal to 0.5 mils of property tax, approximately $1.083 million, from the general fund to the school site renovations construction account in the self-funded construction fund, with an offsetting increase to $216,000 to sales tax revenues and $867,000 to MFP revenues.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Santani, second by Mr. Knezik. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, members of the board, Mr. Santani.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments and first compliment my colleagues on the school board for their very conservative budgeting tactics in fiscal year 16-17, when we budgeted a decrease in sales tax revenues because we had seen a decrease in sales tax revenues the year before and the year before that. And then through the graciousness of the taxpayers of Lafayette Parish, they continued to shop, and our sales tax revenues didn't increase, but they didn't decline. But because we had budgeted a decrease, we ended the year with a healthy surplus, which at our last meeting we transferred to the school sites renovation fund. In the meantime, we used part of that surplus, part of that increase in sales tax revenues, to give raises to our teachers. We gave raises to the bus drivers to attract more personnel that would be willing to drive our buses. And in addition to the sales tax revenues being flat, we also gained 400 additional students, which means more money coming from the state. I hope you'll be able to support this, because what this does is take some of that increase and puts it towards constructing wings on schools every year. And also what it does, because it is termed in terms of a millage rate, as property tax values in Lafayette Parish increase over the years, this number will increase. It's not going to be $1.083 million every year. It's going to be something else next year, and it's going to be something else the year after that. Generally speaking, because property values tend to go up, that number will go up. So what this is here is the start of establishing a stable funding stream for addressing the critical need for permanent classrooms in our parish. So I put this here for your consideration, and I hope you'll be able to support it.
Mr. Hidalgo.
Mr. Santani, the superintendent spoke a minute ago about research he's doing on non-traditional school sites. Do you foresee the possibility of this money's being used toward that in the future, possibly?
I believe if you're talking about funding permanent classrooms, then yes. But at the same time, I believe our policy change that we made last month requires a 2/3 vote to use any of the money that's in the school site renovations account.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, if there are no further comments, I'll call for the vote.
9-4, none against.
All right, the next item pulled is 3.18, Policy BBBF, Board Staff Communications. Mr. Knesset.
I move that the board approve policy BBBF with the following changes to paragraph 3, that the first sentence be changed to employees may also communicate information, thoughts, and concerns, and then delete the sentence entirely that begins with any board member.
All right, any questions or comments from members of the public on the motion? Mr. Cole?
Madam President, our organization maintains... Sorry, there we are. Good evening, Madam President. Jonathan Cole, LPAE. Our organization maintains regular contact with the superintendent and his staff. We would characterize that relationship as collaborative. We appreciate the timeliness. I appreciate the timeliness with which his staff responds to inquiries concerning employee issues. That includes before and after regular business hours. So I'm very grateful as an advocate for our employees that the way his staff has handled things at this point. To that end, and with regards to our advocacy, we support the policy. We encourage our employees, if there is a problem, to follow communication channels wherever possible, to include the grievance process, and we exist as an organization to facilitate that. To that end, we can't fix things if we don't hear about them, and so the only thing that we would talk about, Madam President, with regard to this particular issue is that board members be aware that if we're not hearing from people because they're concerned about anonymity with regard to an anonymous tip or something like that, that from time to time discretion may be needed as a board member to when handling issues, and it may not be entirely necessary to attach a name when a contact is made. But as we said, we support the policy, and we appreciate the communication and collaboration with the superintendent. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments from members of the board? Mr. Knesset?
Yes, ma'am. So board members and the public here, the intent of this is really to encourage the spirit of communication between our employees and the board. Oftentimes, we as board members learn a lot just by talking to employees, and when we come on a campus or when someone emails us or calls us, we don't want there to be any fear of reprisal or retribution when we may find out something before they tell us. And it, in no way do we intend to usurp the chain of command. We all understand who works for who, and we understand that there is a grievance procedure. But I think as a board, we want to make sure that we encourage job security with employees if they decide to come to a board member with a problem. And also, I think it's important that employees and families and of our students know that if you ask for anonymity, you'll get it. I mean, we're all professionals, and if you ask your board member, hey, I want to tell you something, but I need you to not tell people who I am because of whatever fear, that you'll get that from us. I asked to take out the sentence of any board member, basically to reiterate the way that sentence reads right now. It says that any board member receiving such communication from an employee shall, if appropriate, based on the nature of the communication, refer the same to the superintendent for handling and/or response. I think we all understand the type of information we need to communicate to the superintendent, and I don't want to put that sentence in there where we may be violating our own policy to keep information confidential, or as board members use that information how we think is best appropriate. So I'd ask you to support this policy with the revisions that I stated in my motion. Thank you.
All right, if there are no further, Mr. Angel? I did. All right.
I want to make a comment. To you and your organization and our employees, our authority as school board members exists, as Bob Hammons would say, from gavel to gavel. When this meeting opens, we have authority, budget authority, appointing superintendent authority, et cetera, et cetera. And when the gavel sounds again to end the meeting, our authority ends until the next time we meet. So as far as I'm concerned, when the meeting is over, we are John Q. Public, the school board members. And I don't think it's, I'm going to vote for this, but I don't think it's necessary to put anything in a motion for one human being to talk to another human being, whether it's an employee of us or not. When I'm walking on the street or on the sidewalk and somebody wants to come up and talk to me, I mean, I think they have every single right. I think it's a perfect right that they have, whether they're employees or not. Thank you.
All right, if there are no further comments, I'll call for the vote.
Nine for, none against.
All right, the next item pulled is 3.20, Resolution 10-17-1917, Employee Special Counsel. Mr. Hidalgo?
Yes, I move that the board approve the resolution 1017-1917 to employ the firm Pecoraro Law.
All right.
Second.
Second by Mr. Centani. Any comments or questions from members of the public? All right, Mr. Angel?
Madam President, would it be in order for me at this time to offer a substitute motion?
Sure.
All right, I would like to make one then.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to move that the board direct the superintendent to forward all litigation, including workers' compensation claims, to general counsel for handling or assignment to special counsel, and for monitoring and periodically reporting to the school board I'm going to get it. Reporting to the school board on the status of pending litigation, and that the superintendent seeks special counsel status. I may mispronounce this last name. Pecoraro. That the superintendent seeks special counsel status for the Pecoraro law firm to assist in the handling of such claims.
All right. A second by Mr. Broussard. All right, questions from members of the public? All right, from the board? All right, I do have a question. I know that we have another resolution with special counsel for Bro and Lemoyne, and there's some attorneys there who also have legal matters that they're handling and that they handle for us occasionally. So I think we need some clarification. Are we talking about transferring all legal files even from that particular special counsel? Or are we only talking about transferring those files from in relation to the resolution that we rescinded in an earlier vote? I think it's important that we have more than one special counsel because of conflicts of interest and things of that nature. So I think the intent is to transfer those files from the firm that was the basis of the rescinded resolution.
Is that motion up? Is my substitute motion up?
And if we're going to look at amending that substitute motion, then I'd like to consider some language where risk management and or the superintendent would have the option of rotating incoming new files between the special counsel that are approved under the various resolutions.
My substitute motion is to forward all litigation to the general counsel, and then, absolutely, the intent of my substitute motion is not to prohibit anybody from acting as special counsel or to prevent anybody from receiving.
Well, we already have other special counsel. I
thought you said we did.
We do with Bro and Lemoyne, and they are handling files. So the way your substitute motion is worded right now is that those files they're currently handling would also be transferred.
No, I don't think that's my intent, that the current files being held by that firm be said.
So I think that to clarify it, it needs to actually refer to the firm from the rescinded resolution, that all files currently handled by Attorney Tanya R. Smith be transferred to the Pecoraro law firm. I think that's your intent.
Would you repeat that, please?
No?
No, that's not the intent.
So, okay, then I'm confused.
The Pecoraro law firm has to has, before they can receive any work, if you will, or files, they have to be.
They have to be
made
approved.
Special counsel.
Right.
Part of this motion would start that ball that we would submit a resolution to the Attorney General that they become special counsel.
Okay.
And at that point, they will be eligible to receive work.
Oh, so you're not asking to transfer any files from any other firms?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I misunderstood what you were saying. Because it says forward all litigation, so you're talking about future litigation.
Yeah.
Mr. Angel, would you like
Well-
to add future in there?
Sure.
Well, the other problem I'm having as well is we already have other special counsel approved, so when you're saying you're forwarding all future litigation to the Pecoraro Law Firm, you're excluding.
Oh, no,
No,
not
it
to the
says,
Pecoraro Law
special
Firm.
counsel.
It says
To
it right
Hammonds
there.
and Seals.
No, it says, to the general counsel.
Yeah. To General
All right,
Counsel.
all right, it's a very confusing motion, so it's kind of compound, and I don't understand. All right. So you're asking then that Hammonds and Sills be responsible for determining which of our special counsel will handle our litigation files in the future?
Ma'am.
Okay, I got you now. All right, if there are no further clarifications, apparently I'm the only one who needed them, then I'll call for the vote. I'd already asked.
Seven for, one against, one abstain.
All right, the last item pulled is 3.21, revisions to policy JHB, Student Activities Funds Management. I did. No. All right. 3.21.
Well, I move that we approve revisions to policy JHB, Student Activities Funds Management.
All right, any questions or comments from members of the public? All right, members of the board? All right, I have several comments or questions on this one, so I'm actually going to hand my gavel over to my Vice President and ask that he recognize me, please.
Ms. Morris.
All right, so this is a revised policy. It's not crystal clear, but this is the matching funds issue that we've talked about at a previous meeting. We had a very robust discussion about the prior item. It was not presented as a policy, and this is. A couple of my concerns about this particular policy, well, I still firmly believe in the same arguments that I used when I opposed the prior item, that this kind of a policy, especially the way this current one is written, is inequitable to all of our schools. Not to all of them, it's inequitable to certain of our schools. It favors others. But a couple of my concerns are that under the new language, one, it's saying that the board will allocate annual funds. So the board's being mandated to put a certain amount of money into this fund every year, regardless of our particular financial status. Two, and Mr. Guidry, how much money has a majority of this board approved in this fund pending the adoption of this policy?
$500,000.
$500,000?
Correct.
And how much could that, if we took that $500,000 and bonded it out for any particular project, how much is that? How much could we bond out $500,000 for?
Approximately $6 million.
About $6 million. And how many total schools do we have?
44 now?
46 schools. Okay. All right, so the other problem I have as part of our very robust discussion at a prior meeting is that the number, the cap that was included in the prior item was 35,000. And we had a lot of discussion about the fact that with that number, only a handful of our 46 schools could potentially be entitled to any of this money, which would exclude the others. So here, the cap they're putting on this one, at least for this current year, with a $500,000 sum moved to the side, is $50,000. So it's saying that schools can get up to 10% of the current budgeted amount, so $50,000, which would mean that the possibility is that 10 out of our 46 schools would be able to collect this money. So obviously that's excluding 36 of our schools. The other issue I have, again, is the whole equity matter. Yeah, I understand that in a very general sense, every school has the same opportunity to either get people to donate money or to go out and raise money. But most of our schools do not either do not have the community support or finances because of the poverty where those communities are living in. Or they don't have sponsors who can just say, all right, I'm going to write you a check for $35,000 so you can get your matching funds. So I have just some really significant issues with the complete inequity here. I understand that every school has the opportunity in theory, but I think if we look at the reality, this is really a policy that's going to favor our more affluent schools, probably our high schools, especially those high schools that have very robust athletic booster clubs. And so I'm just not in favor of this policy at all, and I'm not in favor of the way that it's currently written either. Thank you.
Yeah, any other board members? Ms. Morrison?
Ms. Morris, what do you suggest if you were to support anything like this? What is your recommendation for this matching policy? What would you do?
I think either the cap needs to be such that each school has the exact same opportunity. So whatever the budgeted amount is divided by 46 schools, whatever the percentage is of that. I think the amount comes out to around $10,000 that each school could have the opportunity to raise funds for, which is very reasonable. I guess, and Mr. Santani said earlier that we've been very conservative in our budgeting. So here, we're talking about all of our huge facility needs. So we could take this $500,000 and bond out for $6 million, which could go a long way towards taking care of some of the particular facilities. We could actually take care of whatever these projects are that the matching funds are for with $6 million instead of with $500,000. So it just doesn't make a lot of financial sense to me. I think there's too much risk for unequal treatment. So I'm not sure that there is an equitable way, given the unique character of several of our communities in our parish. But at a minimum, I would say that the cap should be whatever the budgeted amount is divided by the number of schools.
Mr. Santani?
I'd just like to make a small clarification for Ms. Morris. This $500,000 is not recurring, it's one time. And since it is one-time money, it is unavailable to be sold in support of debt service for bond sales. And I can think of nothing more conservative than getting facilities projects done for half the cost. Thank you.
Ms. Morris?
The policy says it's going to allocate within its annual capital projects fund. So the idea behind that is that each year when we're doing our budget, there's going to be some amount put into here. So let's say next year or 3 years, the majority of the board allocates $1 million. So again, that says 10 schools could get 10% of that $10 million or $100,000. It's still not equitable whether it's recurring money or not. But that money is coming from somewhere, and the policy's written to make this an annual event.
Mr. Broussard?
If we were to take it and apply 10,000 to each school, and the schools does not use their allotted funds, does next year's budget increase, or we just keep it at 500,000 and Don't let it go to that million. I can somewhat agree with a cap of 10,000 per school, have each school divided equally with the monies. And if you don't use it, what do we do? We put a cap on the $500,000 or let it grow yearly and divide it as such?
I'm sorry, I know you're looking at me, Mr. Broussard. I didn't write the policy, and I'm not real sure, so.
I'm just
I don't
asking
have
your
the answers.
opinion.
I don't know. That it's not addressed in this particular form of the policy. So I think that there are certain things that could be addressed with a little bit more detail, but that kind of detail is not in here, so we don't know based on what's been provided to us today.
Any other board member comments? Mr. Chasson? Dr. Chasson, excuse me.
No, that's okay, please. I'm fine.
Hey, I know how hard it is to get
No,
that, trust me.
I'm fine. When it comes to this individual item, what it boils down to for me is if you have the ability to raise 35 grand or 50 grand, then you can raise the 10. But the same doesn't work in reverse. So I understand what she's saying, but if we're going to lend ourselves to that argument that even at 10 grand, they won't be able to raise the 10 grand. So I hope everyone understands what I'm saying. I'm actually lobbying to keep it as is, 35,000, 50,000. I'm fine with it. Because if you can't raise the 35, you can't raise the 10. So you won't be able to raise the 10 anyway. So with that being said, it's our jobs to help them raise it. That's our jobs. So if in District 4 I can't raise it, I'm coming bother every single one of you. Every single one of you. Everybody that we do business with, everyone on our vendor list, every single entity that we do business with, all those people that make millions of dollars off of the school system, I'm bothering them. I don't think we'll have a problem raising it. I'm telling them ahead of time. Anybody in the audience we're doing business with, I'm coming bother you. So, and as well, I read the entire policy, the suggestions, and I was looking for something just to help me be okay with it. And it was actually in subsection 5, where the very last line simply states, after 10% in fiscal year and we're raising money and we're giving money, that those requests from schools that have not previously received such grants will be given priority consideration. So that tells me that if Northside can't raise it and Acadiana High has already got it, that if we can somehow find that money for next year, Northside's up, Lafayette High's up, and if we don't get it that second year, it's either 4 to 5 years based upon simple mathematics. So with that being said, I have faith eventually it'll come. I do agree, Ms. Morris, however, that I don't like the will part. Now, I don't think that technically obligates us like some school is going to turn around and try and sue us that we didn't put any money in. We're going to try and find the money. But I agree with if we need to change the word will, because I'm obviously going to try, but maybe I just can't at the time. So, okay.
I read that and says, we'll allocate an amount available. I mean, I think the amount can be zero.
Gotcha.
I think the amount can certainly be $1. Everybody can get a dime for that facilities project.
Sounds like a plan, sir.
Who decides who grants the money? How does that process work?
Any other board member comments or questions?
Let me go ahead and give my second one real quick. It'll take
Dr.
all
Chasson.
it'll take all of 20 seconds. If they're having trouble, guys, it's honestly our responsibility. I go and ask folks for donations all the time. It's our responsibility. I understand what Ms. Morris is saying, and 99 times out of 100, I would agree with her when it comes to a level of inequity. I can't speak. I've been counting pills all day. I'm going to bother Walmart. I'm going to bother everyone. So I understand what she's saying. I do understand. It's our job. My daughter went to Paulboro. Her daughter goes to Paulboro. It's me and Miss Morris's job to help raise money for Paulboro as well, Northside and other schools. So we're going to see if we can accomplish this goal, and I have faith in us.
Ms. Morris and then Mr. Santani.
And Dr. Dr. Shasov, that's assuming there's any money left if the first 10 schools didn't already take the entire pot of money, so.
Mr. Santani.
I actually amend my motion to approve policy file JHB with the removal of the last sentence in section 2 of the matching fund grant program.
I have a motion, need a second. Second by Mr. Hidalgo. Do we have any public comments on the new motion? Any more board or, yes, Mr. Angel?
I'd like to address a question probably to Mr. Centeni. Mr. Centeni, would you mind if we added that when it came back to the board for final approval, that be a 2/3 majority? Do you have a problem with that? Would you include that? Well, somewhere in the policy it said that the board will ultimately make the decision. I mean, if a school raises money and they want to put a gym floor, let's say somewhere.
I think it says superintendent. I don't think it says board, so you'd have to make change.
The change I just made was removing the superintendent, authorizing it. I'll change it again. That's
So,
fine.
but where then does it say that the board will approve? Because this is just saying that there's a matching and that it will be provided, but it does not say in here that it's got to come to the board for approval.
So I was about to add that at Mr. Angel's request. I'll change the motion instead of removing the last sentence of section 2 to be replace the last section in section 2 with the approval of 2/3 of the school board will serve as authorization for the allocation of funds to each project that has been approved.
We have a motion, need a second. Second by Mr. Latchley. All right, do we have any other public comments on the new motion that authorizes that makes the board the authorizer with a 2/3 vote for approval of these grants? Any more comments or questions from the board? All right, Madam Secretary, I'd like to call for the vote. Mr. Santani, can you just check the motion also?
It will start over, but priority consideration. And I expect that because they already have the money. So it'll get priority consideration for this year. Okay. I feel I won't get a second before I get my first.
We're having technical difficulties.
President. Hey, by the way, Dawn exceeded her 2 times.
Yeah.
8 for, 1 against.
All right, that's the conclusion of the regular meeting. We do have an executive session, so I'll entertain a motion for the board to go into executive session.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to go into executive. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're now in executive session.
nobody answers, they try CC's. So. There you go.
Don't.
Move we go back into regular session.
I'll second. I think we broke the rules. No.
We have a motion on the floor to go back into regular session with a second. All in favor? All right. All right. There's no motion to be made, then I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.